May 10, 1940, Ardennes Forest, near the border of Belgium and Luxembourg. Dawn is only a faint silver glow behind the treetops. Mist lingers in the valleys like breath frozen in time. You can hear birds, quiet, hesitant, almost drowned out by the distant rumble of engines. A French forward observation post stands atop a wooded ridge. Two soldiers, capes wrapped around their uniforms, sip cold coffee from tin mugs. They stamp their boots, trying to shake off the damp. The forest is still, calm, silent. And that silence is exactly why they feel safe. Corporal Lucien Morel adjusts the strap on his MAS 36 rifle. He peers into the deep fold of trees and shadows. There is nothing unusual, no movement, no dust clouds, no columns of armored vehicles, just endless trunks disappearing into mist. The Ardennes, as every French high command officer had insisted, was impassable to tanks. That belief had been repeated so many times, it became more than strategy. It became doctrine, truth, almost religion. Behind them, far to the south and east, the Maginot Line rises out of the earth like a concrete mountain range. Massive gun turrets, steel-reinforced bunkers, retractable artillery, underground railways, barracks, hospitals, mess halls, an entire city built beneath the soil. It is the pride of France, the shield of democracy, the memory of Verdun made permanent. French generals, ministers, and diplomats had visited the line and nodded with satisfaction. No army in the world can break this. The Germans will try the same assault as 1914. We are ready this time. The French High Command believes the war, if it comes, will be a static war, a slow war, a war of trench lines, artillery barrages, methodical offensives. They believe time is their ally, but time is already moving without them. Corporal Morel lowers his binoculars. He sighs. Rien. Toujours rien, nothing. Still nothing. His partner, Private Bernard, smirks. Well, that's the Ardennes for you. Even the birds are bored. They laugh. A quiet, harmless laugh. The kind men make when they believe history is happening somewhere else. But beneath the trees, on the other side of the hills, the ground vibrates. Engines, hundreds of them. The first shapes emerge out of the darkness. Low silhouettes, steel armor, turret-mounted cannons. Panzer III, Panzer IV, Est-Kfz, half-tracks. The vanguard of Panzergruppe Kleist, over 1,000 tanks advancing on a 250-kilometer-wide front. Leading reconnaissance motorcycles glide through the forest in perfect formation, engines humming, headlights hooded. Behind them, armored columns move like a metallic river, its currents controlled by radio signals, maps and orders drilled to perfection. Not a single French artillery shell falls. Not a single alarm is raised. The Germans are inside the Ardennes, and the French do not see them, because Paris believed no one could be there. Hours later, at the headquarters of General Maurice Gamelin, the commander-in-chief of the French army, telephones buzz, clerks type, and aides-de-camp rush back and forth with dispatches. The air smells of cigarette smoke and ink. The maps on the wall show neat defensive lines, thicker where the Maginot fortresses sit like immovable anchors. Gamelin is calm, reserved. He trusts the plan. He trusts the Maginot Line. He trusts that the Germans will strike Belgium head-on. And when reports begin to trickle in, enemy armored vehicles sighted in the Ardennes, the officers shake their heads. Impossible. They must be decoys. Recon units, nothing more. Because if the Ardennes is passable, if armored divisions are advancing through it, then the entire French strategy collapses instantly. It would mean that their army is deployed to the wrong battlefield. It would mean the war they prepared to fight does not exist. Back in the forest, Corporal Morel hears it at last. A low rumble, like thunder, but steady, mechanical. He squints. Something moves between the trees. Not horses, not trucks. Tanks, dozens, then hundreds. The forest floor trembles under the weight of steel. Morel freezes. His breath stops in his chest. Private Bernard's mug slips from his hand and shatters on the rocks. For the first time, the birds go silent. The German armored spearhead bursts from the tree line and pours into the open like a tidal wave. Turrets turning, tracks grinding, infantry leaping from half-tracks with rifles raised. This is not the war France prepared for. This is not the slow, grinding, orderly conflict of trenches and careful advances. This is something faster, something sharper, something new. a word whispered in Berlin military academies, soon to be known across the world. Blitzkrieg, and the Maginot Line, so proud, so immovable, so strong, is suddenly irrelevant, because war has just passed around it. May 12, 1940. Near the city of Sedan, along the Meuse River. Fog clings to the valley floor as the first rays of sun begin to cut through the haze. The Meuse flows quietly under the old stone bridges, dark and reflective like oil. On the western bank, French soldiers of the 55th Infantry Division occupy shallow trenches. They are reservists, older men, many of them veterans of the last war, with lined faces and calloused hands. They wear Adrian helmets and faded uniforms that smell faintly of damp wool and tobacco. They do not expect anything extraordinary today. They expect routine artillery exercises, maybe a patrol, maybe quiet, but the world is already shifting under them. Across the river, the first German shells scream overhead, long drawn-out wails cutting through the morning air. A moment later, the ground erupts. Soil, timber and flesh fling upward into the air. French soldiers dive for cover as a relentless barrage begins, one that does not stop, not after minutes, not after hours. Bombardment, then silence, then another wave, then Stukas. The sirens of the Junkers, Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers rip open the sky. Their wailing, mechanical shriek is not an accident. It is a weapon of terror. The sound claws at the nerves of every man below. French anti-aircraft crews scramble, swinging their guns toward the sky, but the Stukas are already diving, straight down, bombs dropping with precise timing. The riverbank erupts. Concrete bunkers crack, trenchworks cave in, buildings crumble. The French soldiers shout orders but must shout louder to be heard over the thunder of bombs. The air is thick with dust and smoke, choking the lungs. Horses panic, rearing and tearing at their reins. Radios crackle, fail, and go dead. The world is noise, fire, and confusion. Inside one of the command bunkers, Colonel Pierre-Eugène Faure stands over a map table. His hands tremble slightly as he tries to hold his pencil steady. Through the thick concrete walls, the bombardment feels distant, like a heartbeat. But the tremors are constant. A runner bursts in. "Mon Colonel! The Germans are massing pontoon bridges! Tanks! They are bringing tanks to the river!" Faure's eyes snap up. That should not be possible. He had been told the same thing every officer had been told. The Ardennes is a natural barrier. Tanks cannot pass. They will never bring armor through this forest in time. But the Germans are not obeying French expectations. They are rewriting the rules. By midday, German engineers, working under fire, working with terrifying speed and discipline, begin assembling the first pontoon bridges. Under the covering fire of artillery and Stukas, the structures take shape, floating across the black water. French infantry try to resist. They fire rifles, machine guns, mortars. They hit some Germans, but not enough. The Stukas return, screaming, falling, dropping death with mathematical precision. The trenches that survived the first waves are shredded by the second. French morale, solid, confident, immovable just days ago, begins to crack. Men who survived Verdun, Champagne, and the Marne now find themselves paralyzed by a kind of war they do not understand. Not slow, not methodical, not predictable, fast, coordinated, devastating. Blitzkrieg is not just tanks and planes. It is timing, it is speed, it is shock. The French infantry at Sedan are no longer fighting an army. They are fighting time, and they are losing. By late afternoon, German tanks roll across the river. The French positions break, then bend, then shatter. Colonel Faure stares at his map, his hands now motionless. The breach is not just tactical, it is strategic. Through Sedan now lies a wide-open road into the heart of France. Paris, the river crossings, the rail hubs, all exposed. And the French armoured divisions are not here. They are up north, waiting for an attack that is never coming. Everything the French command believed about this war, every assumption, every doctrine, every confident prediction, is collapsing in real time. The Maginot Line still stands. Its guns still point east. Its infantry remain ready. But the war has moved behind it. The shield of France is now facing the wrong direction. The fortress army of 1918 is fighting the ghost of the old war. The Germans have already moved on to the next one. May 15th, 1940. A road west of Sedan. The sound of engines fills the air like a rolling storm. Columns of Panzer III and Panzer IV tanks surge forward in long snaking lines, each tank spaced just enough to avoid becoming an easy target. Dust rises behind them in pale clouds that can be seen for miles. Motorcycle battalions weave between the heavier vehicles, relaying messages, scouting ambushes, clearing obstacles. Half-tracks carry machine gun squads who scan the tree lines with unblinking, hungry eyes. At the head of the spear is General Heinz Guderian, commander of 19th Panzer Corps. He stands upright in his command car, goggles reflecting the sun, coat pressed by the wind. He rarely smiles, but today there is something close, because he knows what most of the world does not yet understand. The French defense has not simply cracked, it has collapsed, like ice under too much weight. Guderian does not wait for infantry to catch up. He does not stop to consolidate gains. He does not slow down to secure flanks. He pushes forward at full speed. His goal is not the French front line. His goal is the French rear, the crossroads, the rail hubs, the lifelines of the army itself. If those fall, everything falls. The French High Command is still in disbelief. At headquarters in Vincennes, a map hangs from the wall. A red pencil marks the German advance. It starts small, a narrow front, manageable, expected. But every hour the red expands, lengthens, deepens, a corridor that should not exist. Communications officers bring reports, dozens, hundreds. German armor spotted west of Sedan, moving fast. Units retreating without orders. Our armored reserves are too far north to intercept. General Maurice Gamelin stands silently, staring at the map. His baton hangs loosely in his hand. His eyes do not blink. He has realized the truth. The Maginot Line did not fail. France failed around it. The fortress was not the problem. The idea of the fortress was static defense in a war of movement, steel walls in an age of engines, confidence in a plan the enemy had already outgrown. Meanwhile, on the road to the coast, the French countryside rushes past in a blur of wheat fields, timber barns and stone farmhouses. Civilians gather at crossroads with carts piled high, staring at the advancing German columns with a mixture of awe, confusion and terror. Some wave white linens, some flee, some simply watch, unable to believe that the front, the war, the enemy, has arrived here so soon. Behind the panzers roll fuel trucks, ammunition carriers, mobile repair crews. Everything moves, everything flows. The German advance is not a charge. It is a system, a machine with 1,000 metal parts, and the French army cannot find the gears to stop it. North of the breakthrough, French and British troops are already deep inside Belgium, fighting the wrong battle on the wrong front. They had rushed there at the start of the war to meet the expected German attack. But the Germans did not intend to win in Belgium. Belgium was the bait. The real strike was here, at Sedan, where no one was looking. The German tanks now turn west and accelerate, carving a straight path to the sea. Their objective is simple and devastating. Cut off the Allied armies in Belgium from the rest of France. Trap them, encircle them, destroy them. May 20th, 1940. Abbeville on the English Channel. The first German armoured vehicles reach the coast. Waves crash against the breakwater. Seagulls circle overhead. The smell of salt is in the air. A young German lieutenant, boots dusty from 200 kilometers of advance, steps forward and touches the cold water with his hand. His men cheer. They lift helmets, rifles, caps. They have just split the Allied forces in two. France to the south, the British Expeditionary Force to the north. No land route between them. A continent cut open. In the north, near the city of Arras, British soldiers suddenly realize the truth. Their retreat routes are severed. Their supply lines are broken. Their artillery is nearly out of shells. They are still fighting Belgium, still pushing east, but the war has moved west, moved behind them, moved past them. They are now surrounded. The trap is nearly closed. Back in Paris, church bells ring in the late evening light. But it is not Sunday, and the bells are not joyful. They are warnings. Citizens crowd train stations with suitcases and children. Government officials begin burning documents. Columns of refugees pour down the highways, stretching for miles. The air smells of diesel, sweat and smoke. The sense of confidence that had defined France for 20 years has vanished. In its place grows something cold, something heavy, something familiar to those who lived through the last war. Fear, and the Maginot Line, mighty and strong and proud, stands untouched, impressive, and completely useless, facing the wrong direction. May 26, 1940. Port of Dunkirk, northern France. The smell of salt water mixes with smoke drifting from burning warehouses along the harbour. Shells whistle overhead, landing somewhere in the maze of old brick streets. The air vibrates with a low, constant hum, the sound of distant engines, German engines, closing in from all sides. Columns of British and French soldiers move toward the beaches with rifles slung over their shoulders. They march in silence, boots crunching on sand and shingle. Some stare straight ahead, some glance back, some whisper prayers, but none speak loudly, because there is no room left for words. The sea is their only way out. On the beaches, the scene is surreal, almost impossible to believe. Tens of thousands of soldiers stand in long dark lines stretching into the water. They wait, as if at the world's strangest train station, except the trains are destroyers, trawlers, tugboats, fishing vessels, and sailboats. Small boats, big boats, civilian boats, boats of every kind. They fill the horizon like scattered grains of wheat on dark water. This is Operation Dynamo, the desperate evacuation ordered by the British Admiralty. The plan is simple. Get as many men out as possible before the German ring closes completely. But the enemy is not waiting politely. Meanwhile, just inland, the panzers prowl the countryside like hunting wolves. Tank crews clean their barrels. Radios crackle with orders. One German commander, Oberleutnant Schmidt, scans the horizon through his field glasses. He sees the smoke columns rising over Dunkirk. He turns to his crew. "They're cornered!" His gunner nods. "Trapped!" But Schmidt lowers the binoculars slowly. "Cornered animals are dangerous." Back on the beach, a British soldier named Private Arthur Tinsley stands ankle-deep in the icy surf. He grips his Lee Enfield rifle, though it has no meaning here. He watches as planes drone overhead, Stukas again. The stomach-churning mechanical scream pierces the sky. Soldiers throw themselves to the sand as bombs fall among them, sending geysers of water and bodies into the air. Shrapnel whips across the waves. Men shout, medics sprint, fires burn on the oil-slicked surface of the sea. And still, the lines hold. No one runs, no one breaks, because there is nowhere to go but the water. Farther down the shoreline, French soldiers hold the perimeter. They dig in behind dunes, wrecked cars and collapsed walls. Their uniforms are caked with sand and sweat. They know what this means. They know this is not their escape. They are the shield. They are here to buy time for the British and the northern French units to evacuate. A French captain raises his binoculars and sees German armor approaching across the fields. Dust clouds, engines, panzers. He knows his orders. "We hold!" He does not say for how long. Back in Paris, government officials argue in polished hallways. Some call for a counterattack, others call for armistice. Confusion spreads like smoke through the chambers of power. Maps are redrawn, plans are rewritten, orders contradict orders. Confidence has melted into panic. But the Maginot Line still stands, its tunnels still hum, its artillery still sleeps, its soldiers still wait, unbroken, untouched, playing no role in the battle that now determines the fate of France. A monument not to victory, but to misjudgment. By June 4th, the evacuation ends. 338,000 Allied soldiers are saved. But equipment is left behind, tanks abandoned, artillery destroyed, ammunition burned or spiked. The beaches of Dunkirk are empty except for wreckage and bodies. The men who escape will fight again. But France is running out of time. Across the map, the red spear of the German advance now turns south. It moves toward the heart, toward the capital, toward Paris. And the City of Light does not have long. June 10th, 1940, south of the Somme River. Wind sweeps across fields of tall grass, bending them like tides on an ocean. The sky is a pale, washed-out blue. A column of French soldiers, exhausted, uniforms torn and caked with dust, trudges along a dirt road. Their faces are hollow from sleepless nights and retreat after retreat. These are not the same men who marched to the front confident and unbreakable. These are men who have seen something they were never prepared to face. A war that moves too fast to understand. Captain Henri Delatour walks at the head of the column. He is young to wear command tabs, 31, but the lines around his eyes have doubled in the last 2 weeks. He clutches his map, though he no longer trusts it. The routes he memorized, the strong points he studied, the defensive belts he believed in, All have dissolved like mist. At a crossroads, his radio operator struggles with a hand crank set. The signal hisses, pops, breaks, then faintly. Paris. Government leaving. Regroup south of the Loire. Delatour exhales slowly. His men watch him. He says nothing, because saying it aloud would make it real. The French government is abandoning Paris. The city is no longer the heart. It is already a memory. Meanwhile, inside Paris itself, the boulevards are crowded not with parades, but with carts, wheelbarrows, bicycles, cars piled with mattresses and children. Refugees stream in from the north, long threads of human desperation weaving through streets once known for laughter and late-night cafes. Church bells ring again. This time, they signal departure. Important museums empty paintings and sculptures into trucks. Bank vaults are emptied. Archives are boxed and sealed. The government flees south to Bordeaux. Ministries lock their doors. Senior officers burn documents. The city is not defended. It is evacuated. The Eiffel Tower still stands, but without power, its beacon dark. The Seine glints in late afternoon light, quiet and reflective. A stillness settles over the city. Not peace, but resignation. Paris is not going to fight. Paris is going to fall. June 14th, 1940. Dawn. The first German motorcycle troops roll through the Porte d'Orléans. The sound of their engines echoes off stone and glass. Soldiers march in perfect formation down the Champs-Élysées, boots clicking in rhythm. Tanks rumble across cobblestone. Cameras follow. Propaganda officers position themselves for the best angles. A black swastika flag is raised above the Arc de Triomphe. No shots are fired. No barricades stand. The City of Light has surrendered without a battle. And for the first time in 1,000 years, a foreign army occupies Paris. Far away, deep underground, in the fortified galleries of the Maginot Line, soldiers still sit at their posts. They listen to radio broadcasts, not gunfire. They hear that Paris has fallen, that the front has moved hundreds of kilometers away, that the government is negotiating. They are furious. Not defeated, furious. Their walls were never breached. Their guns never exhausted. Their morale never shaken. They were never used. A fortress without a battlefield is not a shield. It is a tomb. June 17th, 1940. The voice of Marshal Philippe Pétain crackles across the radio. It is with a heavy heart that I tell you today we must cease fighting. In the barracks, in the trenches, on the roads, in the ruins, every man freezes. In a farmhouse kitchen, Captain Delatour stands with mud still drying on his boots. His men are gathered around the radio. The words settle in the air, heavy, suffocating. The fighting must stop. One soldier drops his tin cup. Another grips his helmet with both hands. No one speaks. No one breathes. The war is not ending. Hope is. June 22nd, 1940. Compiègne Forest. A railway carriage sits in a clearing, quiet and still. It is the same carriage where, in 1918, Germany had signed its humiliation. Now France signs its own. The armistice divides France in two, the north and west under German occupation, the south under a French puppet government. No victory, no honor, only survival. But history is not just defeat. History is how a nation remembers defeat. France will remember the Maginot Line not as concrete and steel, not as a military plan, but as a warning. You cannot defend tomorrow with the strategies of yesterday. You cannot build walls high enough to stop an idea that moves faster than you can think. In 1940, France tried to fight World War I again. Germany fought World War II, and the world changed forever. Summer 1940, the eastern frontier of France. Deep under the earth, in corridors lined with riveted steel and humming generators, the air is cool and still. The floors are polished concrete, the walls marked with painted arrows directing men to barracks, ammunition stores, artillery control rooms, and mess halls that once buzzed with life. But now they are filled with silence. These fortresses, Hackenberg, Schönenburg, Ouvrage Hochwald, were built to endure siege, to withstand direct artillery fire, gas attacks, and infantry assaults. Their retractable turrets can rise from the earth like steel periscopes, spit fire, then withdraw again. Their ventilation systems can seal against chemical weapons. Their corridors connect for kilometers. They were modern castles, and every man inside believed they would be the center of the next war. Yet war did not come to them. It passed around them like a river flowing around a stone. In one gallery, Lieutenant Jules Armand sits on a folding stool beside the radio station. He's been awake for nearly 3 days. His uniform collar is undone. His hands rest loosely in his lap. The radio speakers still hiss faintly with static. No new orders, no rally, no counterattack, just an armistice. His sergeant approaches slowly, helmet tucked under one arm. "Lieutenant, the Germans are here." Armand lifts his eyes. He expected siege, he expected bombardment. He expected fire and fury and death. What he did not expect was a knock on the door. The German officer on the other side does not shout or threaten. His voice is calm. "Your position is unflanked. Your guns are intact. Your rations are sufficient. There is no honor lost here, but the war is over. It is time to come out." Armand exhales. He feels nothing, not fear, not rage, just a hollow, quiet understanding. The fortress was perfect. The strategy was not. In Berlin, Adolf Hitler stands for a photograph in front of the Eiffel Tower. His black coat rests neatly on his shoulders. His boots shine in the sunlight. He looks not triumphant but satisfied, as if the war is already finished and history itself has been rearranged. The photo will become iconic, a symbol of victory not through brute force, but through imagination of a different kind of war. Hitler's generals will later say that the fall of France was made possible not by the strength of the German army alone, but by the weakness of the French idea, not weak soldiers, not weak guns, not weak courage, weak concept of war. France prepared for the last war, Nazi Germany prepared for the next, but history does not stay where it falls. In London, Prime Minister Winston Churchill watches the evacuation lists from Dunkirk. The British army is battered but alive. The war is not over. The ocean stands between Germany and final victory. In Moscow, Joseph Stalin reads reports with cold, calculating silence. He understands what has just happened, and he fears it. In Washington, Franklin Roosevelt reviews maps of Europe and knows America's isolation cannot last forever. The fall of France triggers the real global war, the war of resources, the war of ideology, the war of production, a war that will consume continents. Years later, after Normandy, after Stalingrad, after El Alamein, after Kursk, after Berlin burns and the Reich crumbles into dust, France will rebuild itself, and the Maginot Line will remain. Not as a failure, not as a joke, but as a lesson carved in stone. A lesson that armies, nations, and civilizations will repeat again and again. Strength is not just steel. Strength is the ability to adapt. A wall can stand forever. But if the enemy changes direction, the wall is meaningless. The Maginot Line did everything it was built to do. It was France that misunderstood what needed to be built. In the end, the story of 1940 is not just about tanks or forests or fortresses. It is a story about belief. France believed the past would protect them. Germany believed the future could be taken. And the world learned that victory belongs to those who are willing to abandon yesterday before the enemy does. The Maginot Line still stands today, covered in moss and silence, its tunnels echoing faintly with footsteps from a war long gone. But if you walk inside and place your hand on the cold steel of a dormant gun turret, you will understand. The fortress was never the mistake. The mistake was thinking the world would not move.